Hello all, Jamie Rodgers here from Creative Expressions, and today I thought we would make a little fold flat collapsible 3D display. Now you may have seen me work with these sort of pillars before to make 3D creations. It's something I absolutely love to do. And on today's video, I'm going to give you the instructions on how to create it, hopefully, and a few ideas of what I've used to decorate my one with. As you can see, it should hopefully fold flat in both directions and then stand sort of upright with the pillars, which could then be decorated as you wish to. I've left the reverse of the main disc open so you can write your message on here, and it's still quite a reasonable size to actually pop into an envelope if you wish to post it without putting it into a box. Size wise, it lays flat at approximately 7.5 inches by about 6.5 roughly. But honestly, you could change the dimensions as you wish to create the style that you'd like to do. The important part that we have to bear in mind, and we'll talk a bit more about this when we come to put it together, is that something joins between both of those places. So I know that the side of this is 2.5 inches. So somehow I've got to divide that down with my pillars to make sure that something touches this one and also comes across to this one. If not, this front part would be moving freely on its own, where at the moment it will all collapse down and build up together quite simply. You might choose to have it sort of as freestanding items, but with mine I wanted it all to go as one kind of building, if you like. The idea came to me when I was watching one of my favourite TV shows, and this is what I always go on about with inspiration. It strikes me personally from the strangest of places. And in the TV show I was watching, on the lady's desk in her office, she had a pen holder. And it was seeing her pen holder or organiser sat on the desk that actually made me think, do you know what? I want to make one of those out of card, but I want it to be able to be collapsed so that we could send it through the post. Now, of course, you could build this as a proper 3D display. It could just be an ornament that you bring out at Christmas, depending on what you decorate it with. But it's hopefully an idea that you can sort of take and work with in your own ideas. So let's get on with it, shall we? I've waffled quite sufficiently. Let's actually start doing some building. So to begin with, you are going to want 2 strips of card, and this is going to make up the base part of that construction. Now, so I get the right instructions, I've wrote them down. These are 10 inches in length by 1 inch in width. Again, this could be changed. This could be a bigger sort of box base, it could be smaller. These could certainly be bigger if you'd like to attach more to them. But for my one, 10 inches by 1 inch. At that point, I've scored basically from each end at 2.5 inches. So I've got 5 inches in the middle and 2.5 at the ends. And anytime we're doing something that we want to collapse, we need to make sure that it's all equal. You know, if one side was too big, it's not going to collapse on itself. So we need it to be shared out equally. The bit in the middle could, of course, easily be longer or shorter. That wouldn't make too much of a difference, but we need these sides to be exactly the same size. So it's up to you whether you put it on your board and score at 2.5 inches and 7.5 inches, or do one crease and then flip it around and do the other. But for mine, you need them 2.5 inches at each side. And I've done that twice, and we're going to bring these in. I'm just using some coconut white foundations card at this point. And because I've been rabbiting so long, my glue's gone and dried in its nozzle. But well, there we go. Studio lighting and me waffling are a lethal combination for wet glue. So we're going to put glue on one end of the tab, and we're going to put glue on the other end as well. And you can alternate this between the 2 panels if you prefer. But for my one, I'm going to do both the same so that the joins are both going to be hidden at the back of the box. And we're going to bring this one over and we're going to put that together as well. And that creates the base part to our box. Now, a little tip here, especially with wet glue, give it a good little push down. Make sure that everything's happy and okay to crease. Use your bone folder or burnishing tool, whatever you've got to hand, and just make sure that that is going to go in both directions. Make sure that everything is level and that you're happy with it, because with the wet glue, you've got that little bit of wiggle room to actually move it to exactly where you want it to be. Now, it's up to you how you choose to decorate this. I've gone for some strips of card, which I've already gone ahead and layered. And we're going to put these just around the outside of this. And because I've used the thinner of the 2 weights of coconut card, I can't remember, to be honest. This is bad, isn't it? My mind's gone blank. I can't remember the weight. But because it is the thinner one of the two, I'm going to sort of layer these bits on, and it's going to give you a bit of strength, which is quite handy. So these pieces will really come into their own and strengthen the building. So onto the extra tabs to the end here. So just again, layered with our cobalt blue card and our coconut white. We're going to add one there, and we're going to flip this over, and we're going to add one on this end as well. And these don't have to be perfect, but it's nice if they look nice, isn't it? So that will complete that part. Now you may choose to also do the same on the inside, which can look quite nice. I didn't on my original, so I didn't want to start changing things up for this one. I like them so they sort of look alike when we get to the end result. So now I've got the sides on there, let's bring in and talk about the actual pillars or tubes as such. So you're going to need to do 3 of these, and don't forget we need to make up that difference of 2.5 inches. We know that we've got to get from point A to point B, and something's got to fill out that gap. So you're going to notice that my pillars are different sizes, and that's in their width. They're also going to be different heights because I want them to stand in different places and to be able to see each of them. So there's sort of a bit of a drop on each one, quite dramatic on the top one, a little bit less on the sort of middle or end one as such. Size wise, so that you've got this down, this one is 6¼ inches by 5 inches. So again, height can change, 5 inches to divide down so it's equal, so we can wrap it into a cube or a pillar, and I'll show you how to do that in a second. The next one, this is our sort of middle size one. This one is 4 inches high, again, completely optional, but width wise, it's 7½ inches. And that's because we've divided this down so that we can score each of them and wrap it round. I'm going to give you the measurement of that because I forgot it already. That, of course, is 1½ inches. So we've got our sort of 1½, 3, 4½, 6, and then our 7½ to actually end the length of that panel. Then on to the smaller one. This time we've gone for a slightly different size with this one. This one is 3 inches in height by 5 inches across, and again scored at 1 inch segments. So what you can tell from this is that large one, the tallest one, and this one, that's going to make up our 2½ inches, because when we wrap them round, that one's going to be 1.5 inches wide and this one's going to be 1 inch wide. So when we stick them together, that's going to fill out from point A to point B, like I said we needed to. So let's add on some glue and get building, shall we? So again, Cosmic Shimmer glue, wrap this round. Little trick when you're doing these, just bring in the first 2, bring over the 5th one, and then you can see already that you are nice and in place, and that is going to collapse down as a pillar in any direction. So it's nice and easy to do. We're going to do exactly the same here with the next one as well. So a bit of glue onto one of the tabs, and then we can fold this one over. It doesn't matter where we are, but we can fold that one over. We can check that that's nice and lined up where we want it to be, and then we can work it into each of its directions so we know that that's ready to rumble. On to the last one, a bit of glue onto this pillar. Again, dry as clear glue, so no fear if it comes out the sides, we're going to see it. Push that part down, let that walk over and just make sure that that's going to collapse in both directions. Again, bring in your bone folder if you feel you need it. I feel that you'll know, you know, when you start building these pillars, you're going to quite quickly know if they're going to sort of move freely, or if in any directions they're not quite right and that you need that sort of extra pressure. But we'll do it just in case. We'll make sure that they're nice and happy and that they're doing what they need to be doing. So we have our different pillars in place. It's time to add on some decorations. So we're going to go here first of all for the smallest, and we're going to do exactly the same. We're going to add our glue on here, and we can start placing these blue and cream panels, or cobalt and coconut white if I'm precise, onto each of the sides, just working our way round. So on with another one. But this, of course, could be all manner of items. You might choose to emboss your card first of all, especially with something like this one. Maybe you might want it to have a bit more texture to it. So you could do that. You could stamp on each of these panels instead. That could look really nice. So this really is a concept that I'm hoping you're going to take and run with and make your very own version of it. I don't know if you found them on our YouTube channel, not for this festive release, but over the last couple of years, I've done quite a few Construct with Jamie posts and come up with a few different concepts that you might really enjoy. If this is something you're looking at and thinking, I can't wait to have a go at this, I personally love construction and I might be able to give you a few ideas that you're going to enjoy. I've also wrote a couple of them up on my blog as well, so you can also go on there and see them in that format if you prefer to read them instead of actually watching them come together in video form. But now we have our decorations running all the way around them panels. Oh no, you don't, I'm lying to you. I just see the panels off to my left and I thought, well, I don't know what they're for. Why have I got them ones? I can remember now, we haven't stuck them around this one, have we? So on with the first one, just a couple more of these to do and that will complete our different sizes. I thought it was nice that you could see them before I decorated them and that we could discuss them in their format before they was built. So I thought it would be nice if we did this bit together. So we'll add on our last one on this side here. There we go. And we have all three of those ready to decorate or to add on. So I'm going to bring in a bit of a relic in the grass world, but I love this. This is my Hugie board. And I know we've moved on and we have much more newfangled with more measurements, more pieces, which is certainly a good investment when we're looking at things like our score easies, whether we go for the centimetre or the inches one. But for this actual part of the construction, it's quite handy to have larger sections that I can see really clearly. So I've gone in for my older board and I'm just using it as a guide. So I'm going to go off on my own little tangent here. We're going to bring in our glue and we're going to put that down on that part there. And we're going to start off, where do we want that first pillar? If we look at this one, we want that to be on about that line there. So we're going to work backwards. We're going to bring this in, bit of glue on the front there, making sure that's nice and square. And we're going to place that in. And we're just using that line down here in there to make sure that we're nice and level. The first one isn't too bad for doing that, but it's nice when we move on to the next one that we know exactly where we're going. So this tube's going to go behind it. So we're going to come up with our glue roughly to the same height as the tube in front. So they've got a nice connection. And we're going to put the glue across there. And then I also need some glue to anchor it down to this side. So we're going to flip that over and we're going to go for that same sort of inch, roughly by eye amount across there. Then we can bring that in, slightly hold that one forward, tease this one back a bit. And we can place that down. Joy of wet glue again. We've got that moment to move. Nothing's set too quickly and we can check that we're in the right place and we're against that line. So we can see there that everything's still square, everything's lined up and that we're happy with where it is. Just going to make sure that they meet on the side. And yeah, I think we're about right there. So I'm going to give this a second to set because it's better to let that glue literally set and dry before we start trying to move bits. I would recommend that as soon as you can, we collapse it down and make sure that it will move in both directions. So we'll come back to that in just a moment. On the outside of my card, while we're waiting for that to set, you're going to notice that I've used my Ripple Poinsettia. And again, I've changed colours from this lovely navy to the cobalt that we're going to make this example within. But you can see that they've come together like so. The rippled poinsettia is lovely because it's got these great debossed details on each of the leaves. And to make your poinsettia for this one, all I've done is rounded the leaves round just so that they look quite pretty and sort of a bit of a dome. But these also work really nicely if you fold them up or if you fold them back on themselves. And especially with some of the larger levels of the poinsettia, you can even bring in your tweezers and you can start shaping around them and that's going to look really lovely as well. So play with this, see how you get on. There is also a top tip video. I don't know quite yet if I would have shared it already or not, but I have filmed it and there will be a top tip video showing you lots of different ways that you can actually colour your poinsettias as well with different ink pads and mediums, especially some of our cosmic shimmer items, glossy glazes and bits like that. So keep an eye out for that video if you haven't already seen it. I'm sure it won't be far away or it may already be up depending on when this one gets released. So then, I reckon we're probably good to look at that again now. We'll give that a second, haven't we? We can always put it back if it isn't, but let's give it a go. So we should just, oh, here we go, perfect. So you should just be able to hold it and make sure that that's going to go down and come back up, and we can do that in both directions. And if you can do it in both directions, you know then that you're onto the right track. and we can start adding more onto this. So for our side piece, this one's going to hang out over the edge, and I'm going to glue that one on about there maybe. So a little bit of glue down the side here. And then that should come up and go down with the panel as it is. So again, we'll give that a moment to dry or to set in place, just making sure that that's held nicely there. And we can always put a little box on the back of it as well if we wish to, but I'm hoping on this one we might not need to due to my formation. So on to the next bit, we're going to bring in our Poinsettia rings set. And this is what we're going to be using. So with the Poinsettia rings die, if you haven't seen this one already, there are 3 different sizes. I've gone for the medium size, and I've used it with just the outside edge. I've left out the middle one so it's solid, and we're also going to use the solid one from the outside to make the backing plate. As I mentioned, there is a larger one than this if you would like a bit more room to write your sentiment on, or you'd like more of a feature. You could also put a bit of glue around the edge of this, but for this demo I think we can get away with just putting a little bit on the flowers. I've then got the circle for the middle, and I'm going to place that over the centre so that again at the front here it's not too heavy. We could have chose to cut out the middle, but I actually sometimes prefer to build up on them than cut out from them. With this bit, we're going to bring it in and we're going to stick it to the reverse of the actual box, and we want it to slightly stick out from this side. So we're going to position it where we need it to be so it still comes out the side, but again flat across the bottom so we know roughly where we want it to be. I'm going to take this and we're going to add our glue on. Again, if you need to, this isn't a bad place for you to bring back a scoreboard so you can see where your inch line is and add your glue so it's level and going across from 1 inch area to the other. Or you can use a rule if you prefer. So we're then going to turn that and we're going to place this onto the back there, coming out over that side and push it just slightly over. When we know that we're happy with it, like I am at this stage, we can then think about adding a bit more glue going down this area here. So we'll just bring that forward, put a little bit of glue on the back there, and that can then go onto the back of that pillar. But again, make sure that everything's level. If we're not careful, then that could be the bit that turns it so it's not level enough and the 2 pillars won't then collapse. So if you are going to anchor more to it, make sure that it is where it needs to be. So we'll place that on there, but we're looking good. We'll do a little dry run just to make sure that that's all closing down. Brilliant. Everything's closed down nicely and we're happy with that. We can then bring that back up into the front. There we go. And this little one here, I might add a little box there actually. I haven't prepared for it, but on this one I did that. I added a little scored box. I don't know how well you can see that, just down here. Just a little piece that's got the same distance from the point A to the back of where that box has landed. And if you find that this one isn't moving quite in conjunction with the other ones, then add in that little bit there. Doesn't have to be a big bit, just something that's scored in there. Again, a little 4-sided one so it can just collapse down with it. That will help with that if you feel you need to. Onto our tree. So we're going to decorate the front now. We can bring that down. And on the front here, we're going to add on our tree. And I know that I want this to be about here. So not a lot of area to glue this one. Just a little, but we'll add on a bit around here. Now, to back my tree, you can possibly see this. I've cut 2 at one time. I've cut a blue one and a coconut white one. And with most die cutting machines, when you cut 2 at once, what that means is that the first one will cut out perfectly and the one behind it will stay as a solid, but you can tease it from inside the card. And that's a really good tip for if you want to back a die cut. So that's how I've created that background to go underneath my tree. So if we stand this up once again, we can then go on to our little bar at the top. And I've chose to add on my little Christmas hugs was what I went for. And this is from the sentiment collection that I've released with my festive collection. And I'm going to take a cream panel. And this is actually from last year's Christmas release. So I'm going to take this on and I'm going to cut it down the centre. I'll put up a link at the end or little pictures at the end so you can see all of the dies I've used. But I'm then going to take the actual panel and we're going to put some glue across the top and the bottom. And we're going to glue that so that we've got our very own shadow coming out of each side. And obviously on the back, we've made a visible join there. because of people can see the reverse of this from the back of the card. So we could either then stick another blue one on the reverse, but actually, because I didn't really want it to steal much attention, especially when you were looking at the back of it, and you should be looking at the greeting that's been wrote. So instead I've used another piece of coconut white, and we're just going to stick that on the reverse and slide that into place just so it matches up with the rest of the panel. And then that way we've got a slight shadow going on around this, and it will give us a nice effect. So where have I hid my Christmas word? I don't even know if I've got one actually, so we might have to pretend that. Honestly, this is my 5th or 6th video I've filmed today, I think, and I'm getting in chaos, but that's fine. We can run with it. We'll pretend I've got a Christmas word in. This is all about giving you ideas. It doesn't have to be exact. So on with our 2 poinsettias. We know that they're going to go near the tree, so we're going to bring one down here, and we're going to bring one up just above it. And we're then going to bring in a few of the holly leaves that we have. And we're going to bring in a piece of card maybe. Can I find a bit? Oh, here we go, a piece of paper. And I'm going to put some of the glue out onto that, just so I can dip the leaves in and bring them under there. So these are our holly leaves, again in with a rippled poinsettia. And we're going to put one up there. We're going to just shadow around that tree, so another one that side. And then one up here as well. And it's going to bug me that I haven't put my Christmas on here, so I'm going to have to add it on and finish this later. But that's fine, not the end of the world. Add a bit of glue onto the reverse of this. I'm going to anchor that down coming off the top of that background pillar there, so that comes up in the air. And then if we left enough room, oh, I've gone a little bit over with my holly, so I might, there we go, we can give that a bit of a wiggle. Boy of wet glue, and we'll go again through with some glue on my hand, just so I can pick that up on the back of the hugs. And then we'll place that down on the front here. There we go. So please imagine I've added a Christmas at the top there, but that will give you a little idea of how you could be making these little 3D boxes. Now, as I mentioned, if you do want to put that pillar in at the back, just work out the distance from that back bit to the back of your pillar. I should imagine it's about 3/4 of an inch, maybe, might even, oh, about 1/2 inch on the one I've done here. So if you was to make a little box that is, or cut a piece of card which is 2.5 inches, score it at every 1/2 inch, wrap that round like we did the pillars, and just glue that behind there, then that one will come up and collapse down with the others as well. But you might not find you need it. I actually think this collapses down quite nicely and seems to come up on its own quite nice as well. But it's certainly an option if you feel you need to. I hope that gives you a few ideas of how you could create one of these. If you've got any questions, please, of course, pop them in the comments and I will do my very best to answer them. As I mentioned, I will put in little pictures now of all of the dies I've used, which will hopefully give you some ideas on if they're ones you'd like to add to your collection. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope you've enjoyed today's video. If you haven't been keeping up with them already, there are lots of videos for lots of different cards from my brand new festive collection on my YouTube channel and on my Jamie Rodgers Crafts Facebook page that will hopefully give you a little bit of inspiration on what you could be doing with my brand new collection. Thank you very much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you all again soon. Bye for now.